In the ocean of new and innovative RTS games, few are as historically accurate or give players freedom of choice as Battleplan. We had an opportunity to play its demo at the start of 2026, and its developers, one of which I will be interviewing in this video,
I'm Michael Long, the CEO of Foolish Mortals and also a lead developer on Battleplan.
have taken our feedback and made considerable changes to the core gameplay to allow us to play in more ways than the originally envisioned one. I had more than a dozen questions, and my first one was for the developer to tell us about the people behind Battleplan.
The unit is out of supply.
Most of our team is here in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, which is the middle of nowhere in Canada, the flat prairies. We've made several strategy games in the past. We really enjoy making historical war games, and Battleplan is our latest one to date. And I've been making video games for about 8 years full time, and again, Battleplan is going to be our biggest game to date.
I was also interested to hear how Michael himself got into game development in the first place.
So I went to university, to school to learn how to program. I went into computer science. And while there, I didn't plan on making video games or anything. I was just learning how to code. I then signed up for a game jam, which is where you create a video game over 48 hours or 2 days a weekend. And so it was a really great experience. It doesn't hurt that I won the game jam. And ever since then, I've been hooked on making video games, and it's been what I've wanted to do. I'm being very fortunate that I've been able to do that full time as a career.
The thing that really interested me was how the reception of the demo felt to the developers, and were there any major changes they made after reading or watching feedback from players.
Sure. So the reception of the demo was pretty overwhelming. We got a lot of downloads, tens of thousands. We were in the top 3% of demos during that specific Steam Next Fest. So yeah, the response was far larger than we would have thought. We then also got thousands of pieces of feedback, and it came from all over the place. In-game, you could click a little bug icon in the corner, and then it would open up an in-game feedback form, and you could type whatever you wanted. And then it submitted and uploaded a Trello card, a little card for us to read on our end. People could also submit feedback using the Steam forums, the Slytherin forums, also on Discord. And we got thousands of pieces of feedback. So it was extremely overwhelming and even hard to even read all the amount of feedback there. But yeah, we're very thankful for all the players to playing the game and letting us know what they thought. And we've fixed and changed a lot of things based on their feedback. That's right, a whole lot of things.
At the ready.
The way the old order system worked, we called them the timeline orders, where you queued up a series of orders linearly, one after another. So you'd say assemble here, then seize ground here, and then move somewhere else, and then do a artillery barrage here. The main piece of feedback we got there was that it's very difficult to give sub-unit orders or regimental orders. So if you had your division and you wanted to generally keep it whole, and you say I want one regiment to go this way and one to flank this way, and then one attacks up the middle. Doing that with the timeline orders was very difficult. The interface is bad. It just wasn't very good for that. So we want to create a new order interface that did let you give regimental or sub-unit orders and would make it easier to have multiple things going on simultaneously. It was possible in the old order system, but it was very difficult and the interface was bad.
Well, sounds like you had your job cut out for you after the demo.
Oh yes, yeah, lots of work, that's right.
How much influence did your past game or games have in your plans for Battleplan? And which games do you draw most inspiration from?
So for the first part, our past games, we've made several strategy games in the past. Our first major commercial title was Radio General, and from that, I took the emphasis on real-world history. In Radio General, we presented real-world historical photos and documents to the players before and after each mission. So I really wanted to teach people about the war and that this was a real war and real battles happened and people died. We wanted to include as many historical documents and teach the players as much as we can. That love of historical documents and using real historical photos from sources like Library and Archives Canada, Library of Congress for the US, Bundesarchiv for Germany. So we used all these sources to use real-world photographs in the game. Additionally, the cost of war and the loss of human life was a theme from Radio General that I also carried forward. At points, we want the player to feel bad that all of these people died under their command. So we do have you actually write letters home to the families of officers that are killed under your command. And so that it doesn't affect gameplay whatsoever. It's just an interesting experience for the player to say, like, what would you write to the family of someone who died, on following your orders? What do you write? Again, there's no gameplay effect on this. It's just an interesting experience, and I've had people like in tears thank me for giving them that experience, even though these are just fake virtual soldiers. Our other game that we're drawing inspiration from is called Real-Time General, and that was a mobile game, but it had a very large scope. For that game, we actually modeled the entirety of the Normandy area of France, in the province. And so we used real-world geographic terrain. It was very accurate. Every road, town, forest, and swamp is exactly where it was in France in real life and in the game. So we took that geographic technique of downloading real-world maps and using real-world terrain in our missions to make it very detailed. And we also, from that game, we also put some photographs on the map itself. Now, they weren't actually geolocated of where they were actually taken, but for Battleplan, we took it further. Now, when we display photos on the map, they were actually taken at that place in real life. So when you play the Caen mission, you'll see photos of like British soldiers entering Caen, and then we actually put the photo pin exactly on the street where that photo was taken, because we can actually still identify, where those were. And as far as I'm aware, no other game has ever done that. In fact, only like one or two websites have that idea, but I'm pretty sure like we're the most photos in one place to ever do that, like geolocate them and put them on a map.
Yeah, it does sound amazing and unique. And I just got a thought like you're almost transferring from a game into art by doing such things.
Oh, thank you. I hope so. That's right. We do want to provide a fun and entertaining experience, but we do also want to teach the player and also, make them feel certain things. Sometimes you feel bad, sometimes you feel good. We do want to do more than just provide entertainment. And so which games do you draw most inspiration from? So I guess Battleplan is a mix between the real-time battles of Steel Division 1 and 2. In those, you actually zoomed in and like saw individual tanks moving about over like pretty realistic terrain. Over, and like somewhat large maps for that style of our real-time strategy game. But then also Hearts of Iron 4 was much bigger scale. It was a grand strategy where you control an entire country and you line up all your forces at the borders, and then they push inwards. So we kind of thought like, well, how could we make like a larger version of Steel Division 2 that kind of emulates the big battles of Hearts of Iron 4, but like add a lot more gameplay to that. So it's somewhere in between like Steel Division 2 and Hearts of Iron 4 into this very real-time simulation-y operational war game. So we can kind of simulate like one less than a province, but still like 20,000 square kilometers per mission. So still, large scale.
Yeah, and it feels huge when I try to move an army and then see them slowly move. I kind of start to realize just how much space there is for them to move. And when day and night cycles start to change, then I start to realize, oh, this is taking a considerable amount of time.
That's right. And although theoretically, like vehicles, could drive 50 kilometers per hour, in reality, in our game, they move a lot more slowly, especially during war. There's all sorts of reasons why units can't move as quickly as we can driving down a highway or a road. Getting places takes a long time, and it's pretty realistic our speeds in the game. It's gonna take a while to get there.
Now, this next question you might have already answered, we can skip it if you think you already answered it with the previous one. What was your main inspiration for Battleplan?
Yeah, so it was basically the previous one. It's basically a mix of Steel Division with Hearts of Iron 4, somewhere in the middle there, with influences from our past games.
Okay, thank you. So the next question is, what led to the decision to make it possible to play as the Germans, and explain a bit just how different that is to the normal game mode?
Sure. So it mainly came down to that it's pretty standard in most strategy games, and many strategy games to be able to play as several factions. So it's pretty standard to do that. And also in this case, we already had all the missions set up. We had all the realistic geographic maps. We had all the research for what happened during the battles and the documents and the unit starting positions at which units were there. And it basically was it wasn't that much more work to put it in of like, okay, we'll just let them play as the other side, like literally just change a toggle which faction they're playing as. But of course, we had to alter a few things. The main things were like the new objectives that you had to give them we had to make them a little bit more interesting than just like, well, hold your positions for 20 days or 30 days and you win. So we did have to make some new objectives like, okay, well, if you can counterattack and take a town or take one of the allied major cities, then that's also a victory. So in some missions, we have multiple win conditions, either like hold your ground for that long or go capture a town that they never were able to in real life. But mainly it comes down to it wasn't all that much more work to add in.
Okay, great. That was an excellent explanation. Thank you. So the next question is, why did you decide to add the zone orders as a new way of issuing orders?
Sure. So again, in our previous, the old way of doing orders was the timeline orders, where you linearly add orders and they're executed one at a time. And the interface for giving orders to subunits within your formation. So again, if you wanted to say, have one regiment go this way and one regiment go that way, it was possible to do that, but the interface was very bad and it wasn't very intuitive. It wasn't very good for that. So the zone orders were a way of, we wanted to make it far simpler to give regimental orders. So say, Regiment 1 goes this way, Regiment 2 goes this way, and Regiment 3 in the middle. We want to be able to make it easy to give simultaneous orders to all of your units and see what all of them are doing at all times. All the units are allocated at the bottom. They're all doing something, and so you can very easily see what they're doing and very easily drag between the zones and the sections to reallocate units like, Regiment 1 is not doing well. I better allocate a few more units to assist them capturing their area. So it mainly came down to, it was hard to give subunit orders, simultaneous subunit orders, order multiple regiments at the same time.
Okay, this question that connects to the way you talk about divisions and subdivisions and regiments. Did you realize that once people started playing the game who aren't familiar with the military divisions or the way the military is divided in the Western Hemisphere, how would they find it easy or hard to figure out what is a division, what is a regiment, what is bigger, what is smaller, and so forth? Did you put in, like in the localization, some differences so that different people who speak different languages would understand that in their military's term, or did you put in some sort of an explanation or tutorial in the game for that?
Yeah, so there is, I guess, for war gamers, I definitely, most of them like know what divisions and regiments are. But if you're not a hardcore wargamer, you probably don't. There's a lot of military lingo that's thrown around and using NATO symbols. If you're not an expert, you wouldn't know, well, what does the oval mean versus what does the triangle mean? You just wouldn't know unless you Googled it. For the NATO icons, you can choose to just use 3D unit models. You can see, oh, look, it's a guy with a gun, it's an infantryman. Oh, look, it's a tank. Those are easy to see. For the divisions with regiments, we do allow you to give, again, subunit orders, regimental orders. We never force you to. You can play the entire game without doing any of that. You just need to know that, I guess a division is just generally the base unit for giving orders to your units. They're mostly organized into divisions. But you don't actually need to know what battalions and regiments are. We've kept it fairly simple in that regard. There's also no special, I guess, meaning between regiments and battalions. They're all just, at the end of the day, in the Army Constructor, each unit you drag around is just one battalion, or I guess we call it a unit group. And so there's no special meaning to a regiment or anything. You could just have your army be entirely made of unit groups or battalions, though commanding that would be a nightmare. I guess we try to just keep it pretty simple in that you don't need to know what those terms mean, and we don't expect you to. You don't have to use them, I suppose.
Yeah, and that's good thinking because that way you can expand your player base beyond the people who would actually be understanding of that lingo in advance.
Yes. And I suppose when you do give what we call in the zone orders, there's one order called regimental plan. You just like draw an area and then the game splits it up for you into like however many regiments it thinks you have. That's all automatic. Like you don't actually need to know what a regiment or how big they are. It just does it for you based on size and how many units it thinks should be in a regiment. So if you're a new player, you don't ever need to touch that. You don't ever need to change those. The game will just do it for you. And you're like, okay, that looks fine to me. Yeah.
That's an excellent explanation, and thanks for saying that because I think a lot of my viewers who might be scared of playing such a complicated game by just looking at it, they might think it's complicated, but if the interface and the UI and the commands let them play more easily, I think that your explanation will invite them to the game.
Thank you.
So just how important are logistics in Battleplan, and what elements did you have to remove from that system to keep it working from a gameplay standpoint and prevent it from becoming too cumbersome for players?
Sure. So logistics are very important in Battleplan. Whenever you click on a division or formation, it'll show in the bottom left this bar that says how much supplies they have, and also the rate of supplies, the rate of change. So whether or not they're consuming more or gaining supplies faster than they're consuming. And you really, really don't want your divisions to run out of supplies. It's very bad. So when a unit's low on supply, they'll have a significant combat penalty. They'll fight far more poorly. And then if they ever run out of supply completely, they'll start taking attrition damage. Wounded soldiers will be dying without medical care. Soldiers will be deserting and surrendering. So you really, really don't want that to happen. In fact, that's disaster. That's like the surefire way to lose. So you need to make sure to always place supply depots close to your troops, because supply depots send supplies to your troops, and the distance between the supply depot and the division determines how quickly supplies are transferred, as well as the terrain type between your supply depot and the division. So we actually check like, is it along roads? Is there swamps or forests slowing down the supply trucks? So you want to be as close as possible to a supply depot along roads. That's the way to get the most supplies. So logistics are very important, and especially for armored divisions. Tanks use up like 3 or 4 times the supplies that infantry do when fighting. So tanks will only be able to fight for at most a day or two of constant solid fighting before they're out of supplies, and you'll have to literally pull them back with a resupply order to fill them up with supplies again, and then you send them out again. So you kind of like cycle like 1 or 2 days fighting, a day of rest, and then you send them back out, and you keep like cycling them. So it's very important. You can also encircle enemies to cut off their supplies. You can use the encircle order, and they'll form a perimeter and cut them off. And then the enemy will start losing supplies and be cut off, and cutting it off is also has combat penalties as well, and units will surrender more quickly and won't rally after panicking. So it's very important. And it's always better to encircle the enemy if you can. If you have time in the mission, because missions are timed, you only have so many days or weeks to complete it. If you have time, you're far better off encircling the enemy and cutting them off from supply than directly engaging them in direct combat. Because you can defeat them. If they run out of supplies, they'll start surrendering on their own. Why lose your own soldiers? Why take casualties if you don't have to? So we did want to keep it. We wanted to keep, I guess, the surface level very easy. Of that, again, anybody can pick up and play the game, and all you need to really understand is that go look at that supply bar at the bottom, and if it's low, don't go on a big offensive with that unit, and make sure to put your supply depots as close as possible to units that are fighting. Those are like the 2 main things you need to keep in mind. Look at that supply bar and put your supply depots very close to your units. So we want to keep it simple enough that anybody could pick that up. But then there is a bunch more depth in that you can actually go capture enemy supply depots. So if you can send your recon planes out and scout an area, they'll reveal enemy supply depots and be like, oh, I see that there's 2 supply depots behind the front lines. Now when I plan my attack, I could actually, my armored division, go very specifically, like snake their way through and get those supply depots, and then they won't have to pull back to my friendly supply depots after a day or 2. So there's a lot more depth from how simple it is to start with. And we didn't want the player to have to futz around too much with too many menus of just getting it working. So, we did debate a lot of ways of like, oh, maybe every day a bot menu comes up and asks like who's getting what supplies. We didn't want to lock it behind too many menus for that sort of thing. Something in future we are considering adding is there still may be one menu where you have a slider and you choose like, oh, does one division have generally higher priority than the others and they get more of the resources than the others? That's something we may add in a future patch. But we don't want to lock it behind too many menus.
And one thing that you simplified that I was actually happy about was that there's no manpower, fuel, or ammunition separately. It's just all called supplies. So that's really easier for the player to manage than to manage 3 separate supply types.
Yes, yeah, we decided to keep it simpler and just say supply. You need all of it to be able to fight. So. And
when you mentioned tanks doing a spearhead, that's something I did in the demo. I had a huge tank breakthrough through the enemy line, and I found myself behind their main line, attacking their second line, and I was running low on supplies. And then a single tank noticed their supply depot, and I was like, yes, now they can eat.
There we go. That's right. They can eat the enemy's beans. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a really fun experience, especially because I hadn't used any planes, so I just figured finding those supplies on my own with the spearhead, with the tank spearhead.
Right on.
Okay, we can go to the next question. Can you explain why you decided to make it possible to choose between 2 ways of playing Battleplan, the planning phases and the readiness, and explain a bit about them to my viewers?
Yeah. So this has been a very tough one. So Battleplan is a very unique game. There's nothing quite like it. It's pretty innovative. And so some of the design questions we came across, there were no set answers of how to do this. So we actually went back and forth during development on multiple ways of, well, when can you give orders to your units? In a traditional real-time strategy game, it'd be at all times, it doesn't matter. War games, turn-based war games generally often have they call it the WWII system, where kind of both, all actions are it's turn-based, but the actions you give are simultaneous to the enemy actions. So plan and turn-based, but then simultaneous moves. So we want to kind of see of like, oh, well, could we combine the two? So for the planning phases, it was this idea that you can only create plans and orders once a day during the planning phase, and once a day. But however, you can execute them whenever you like, but you can only create them once a day during this planning phase. And so you had to look ahead and be like, what do I want each of my divisions doing? Okay, so these 3 will be attacking, so let's create some attack orders. And then these other 2 will just be sitting there and defending. But what if the enemy attacks? Well, I'm going to create orders for them that, let's create some fallback lines they could move back to in case the enemy attacks. But I don't have to execute it. Again, we can just sit on those plans. We don't have to do them. So that was the idea of the planning phase, is that you want to think ahead about the whole day. Now, the downside of that was that once the planning phase is over, you could execute the orders whenever you like, but it was a lot of waiting. Of like, now you kind of just turned on fast forward, and then you waited until the next planning phase. Like, okay, now I can, continue attacking forward. So there was kind of like a waiting element. And I mean, it was certainly enjoyable to watch the simulation, the units move about and fight. I certainly enjoyed that. But understandably, some players thought that was boring, of just like waiting around between being able to give orders and, do new things. So the readiness idea was like was an answer to that of we still don't want to quite give you command of like giving orders instantly all the time. We want to go a bit more realism in that a general couldn't just, I'm going to order 20,000 men to attack this line right now, this instant, and they all instantly obey. We still want to go for realism, like, no, things actually takes time and planning, and time is a key component in this game. These real missions take weeks to play out, and so we want plans to like at minimum take 6 hours, 12 hours to have your officers go over like, well, what would it take to move 50,000 men and attack? It's actually a lot harder than you think. Like, it would take hours and days, weeks of planning to actually do that. So the readiness idea is that you can give orders at any time, you can create plans at any time, but you want your orders to sit there and stew and let your officers plan it before you execute. So you'll see this little like percentage that increases. So you want to like ideally give your officers 6 or 12 hours time to look at your plan and before you actually execute it. And if you execute it early, you still can do that, but you get a stat penalty to all of your troops are disorganized. They're rushed. The officers don't know what's happening. They'll still do the order, but they certainly won't fight as well. They won't be as organized. The artillery won't be as prepared for their barrages and such. So this is a bit more traditional in that you can give orders at all times, but you're penalized if you rush things. So we did decide to go with that one as like the default way of doing it, because it is also not intuitive to take away control from the player between the planning phases. Like for a real-time strategy game, most players are like not familiar with that. And I get it, it can be frustrating to not be able to do the thing you want to do right away. So the readiness is more closer to the traditional real-time strategy of giving orders anytime, but we still reward you for sitting back and taking your time to let the officers do their bit.
And it actually feels, and when I listen to you, it just feel like that's the more realistic way of doing things.
The readiness, being able to create plans at any time, but you have to let them plan them for a few hours.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It just fits the game's idea, the narrative that you are giving out commands and then somebody else is doing them down the line and trying to figure out how to do the operations that you ordered from the top.
Yes, yeah, that's right. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we can move on to the next question. Can you explain how multiplayer will work in Battleplan, like modes, maps, settings, AI, saving, loading, and so on? And will it be available on release?
Sure. So unfortunately, online multiplayer will not be available on release. And we will be evaluating feedback to see. We've got a whole list of like things we want to add. There's always more things to do, more things to add. And we're going to be listening to feedback to see when we add multiplayer post-launch, or if we focus on something else. It's a pretty major feature. We would like to get to it, but unfortunately, we just don't have time right now before launch. So it won't be at launch, but we hope to add it post-release. But again, we will be evaluating what the community thinks, if they want multiplayer, or if they'd rather like have a map editor or just more missions and units and such like that. So we will have to see what they say. If we were to implement online multiplayer, I hope we do, certainly you'd be able to play all the campaign missions online, and ideally, and definitely, you'd be able to play them co-op with your friends. I greatly enjoy playing online campaigns with your friends, and it's something I feel not enough strategy games do. So we would definitely want to have online co-op campaigns with your friends. And the way it would work when playing on the same team is simply that the one player would get all their units, and they just gift them to other players to take command. So if you've ever played the Total War series, whenever you do a real-time battle with other players on your team, you just choose which units you want to give away to the other players, and then they take command of those units. And so you could theoretically basically have like any number of players. For Battleplan, we'd want any number of players to be able to be on your team, and you just give away units you don't want to control yourself. So any number of players. We would plan versus mode as well. So, the allies and the Axis. There would be that as well. Now, certainly the game wouldn't be balanced. And also historically, for all these missions, the Axis did lose. So we wouldn't put in all that much work for balancing it. So it may be more like, how long can the Axis hold out? Or, did they do better than they did historically? Yeah, we'd have to see.
I just wanted to say that it feels to me like the cooperative aspect is going to be a lot more fun than the PvP aspect anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I generally enjoy co-op more than competitive. And there wouldn't be any leaderboards or online rankings or online auto matchmaking. So it may even be just the co-op aspect. We would see if we got to the versus aspect.
Okay. Next question is: will your AI cheat at higher difficulty, and if so, how?
Yes, that's very common in real-time strategy games. They get more gold or resources or can see where all units are. So for Battleplan, our AI doesn't cheat, except at the very start of the game. They do know where units start deployed, but after that, our AI does not cheat. They do use like the starting unit weights to position units likely to block, because when you start the mission, remember that the war has been going on. Like the war's been happening for a while. So like they start with knowledge of what happened the previous months and weeks and where the units are lined up. So like historically, they start with information because they knew what was going on. But then once you take control, they don't know what's happening beyond what they can see. So no, our AI does not cheat at any higher difficulties. We do give you full customization on the difficulty options. So before a mission, you click that difficulty button, and there's a whole bunch of slider options. Like, oh, I can give myself more units. I could give the AI enemy more units. I can change the amount of supply that we have in depots. I could even remove the fog of war if I wanted. So we let the player fully customize like how hard they want the game to be. And additionally, we really want everyone to be able to experience the full campaign. If you're having trouble with a mission or just don't like it, there is a skip mission button. You can just click skip and we'll just let you play the next mission, and that's fine by us. After all, there's no online leaderboards or anything. You can experience the single player however you like.
That's actually original in so many ways.
That's right. Yeah, we don't want to stop you if for some reason you don't like it, or maybe units are too damaged and you don't want to do it. Sure, that's fine.
Yeah, I really appreciate you putting an option like that in the game. I think it will make it easy for players who are simply older and don't want to bother with a mission that's annoying them. I know in my past I would run into a mission that would be really annoying, and I would be like, oh man, I wish I could just move on to the next one, because this one I'm just not feeling capable of finishing it.
Sure, that's right. Yeah, you type in the cheat code to beat the mission. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so the next question is, what campaigns of World War II would you like to cover with Battleplan style of gameplay?
Sure. So I can't talk about specific DLC or expansions. That'll be coming soon. There'll be a roadmap where we announce like what we plan to do. As for generally, I guess, I can talk very generally. Again, this is not a promise that this DLC will make it or anything. Certainly any campaigns with like large open areas are kind of where the gameplay excels. The more, I guess, constrained it is, the smaller the areas. It's just less interesting and less fun just to have like static lines be just really tight and packed and just smushing into each other. We want generally room to maneuver where you can, break through a line here and there's a big amount of territory and then the enemy moves to react. It's better played with large open areas. With that said, I do think the Eastern Front would be awesome, but it's kind of like on a scale, a separate order of magnitude larger. So that'd have to wait. But certainly, yeah.
Yeah, the operations would be like 6-7 times bigger, definitely.
You got it. So that would have to wait if there was ever a Battleplan 2, perhaps.
Okay, thank you for answering that. I seem to have skipped one. So how close did you design your game to be to historical events, and what changes did you make for the sake of gameplay?
Yeah. So this has always been, I guess, a push and pull for designing a strategy game, was that, I guess, for a traditional strategy game, you want to introduce units one at a time. Like, oh, this is the mission where you get anti-tank guns. This is the mission where you get artillery and engineers. For war games, it's expected that all of your divisions already have all these units. So we kind of throw you in the deep end and say, yep, everyone's got everything, and you'll just have to learn as you go. So that's a departure from regular, traditional real-time strategy games and going more towards the war game spectrum. As for historical events, we did, research each level quite a bit, each battle, and we wanted roughly them to play out the way they did. So generally, the starting positions are all historically where they were. Like if you play Khan with the default historical units, so there's a little toggle, a check mark before each mission. You can click it, and you then play out the mission with the real world historical units that were there at the time. So in Khan, if you actually do that, you'll see, oh look, the 6th Airborne is actually holding the wetlands northeast of Khan. That's where they were in the real battle. So we do historically like place units where they were, and which divisions were present are all historically researched, as well as even which historical officers were leading them. We do use their portraits and have bios on them, including enemy officers as well. So those are all very carefully researched and positioned. As for I guess, what gameplay changes, we did sometimes like add in like, oh, enemy reinforcements arrived at this time. We kind of looked at like the general objectives and what the AI was doing. Say, oh, the Germans weren't able to attack at all in the Cherbourg Peninsula. They were cut off. They really had no hope of doing a counterattack, so they don't even try. Whereas other missions, they're stronger. They're not cut off. They actually do try to do attacks and counterattack. So we did change their AI. We did change the historical unit positioning and the real world officers and objectives. And of course, the map areas themselves, we kept you like roughly the missions should play out like they did historically. We generally encourage you to do that. So I guess I'll go back to Khan. The city itself is extremely well defended. There's no way you'd be able to attack it head on in the first half of the mission. The first half, you're on the back foot. You're defending against these constant German attacks with tanks. And then you get reinforcements each day as more and more troops land. So then eventually you have enough troops that you can start going on the offensive. And we still the city of Khan itself is super heavily defended. So we recommend you like cut it off from all the sides and try to like starve it out first rather than just do a very bloody head-on attack. So we want the missions to play out mostly as they did in real life.
I'm actually amazed how much effort you spent to make it pretty historically correct and the depth you went with creating those missions.
Thank you.
Okay, so my next question is, what customization is possible right now in the game and what would you like to add?
So right now, I guess, easily, when you create a new game, you're given like divisions, and in the army constructor, there's a screen where you can customize the chain of command for each division or formation, or also known as the order of battle. So each division is made up of 30 or 40 groups of units or battalions in military lingo. And you actually see like this full like diagram. So it's like there's a headquarters at the top, and then there's these lines moving to these other headquarters that are the regiments. And then inside the regiments, there's like infantry, 3 infantry battalions, and an anti-tank company. So you see there's a diagram with a bunch of lines. Well, you can rearrange this diagram and battalions as much as you like. So you can say, you know what, I don't want those sub-regiments. I want everybody to be under one headquarters. Just everybody's in. We don't need more. You can do that. That's allowed. You can completely customize these lines, and you can make these formations as big as you want. As a matter of fact, you could put your entire army under command of one headquarters if you wanted. That'd be a mega army group. And then when you do the the regimental orders in mission, it would try to split them up into like the three or four areas. So you could play the entire game with only like 1 or 2 supersized units if you want, or you could split them down to very small formations, and they're only like a few battalions each. So we completely let you customize how you want to order these units, whether they be divisions, corps, army groups, or regiments, or even battalions. You can completely do it however you like. I guess the only restriction is that each formation going to battle must be led by a headquarters and must be led by an officer inside that headquarters to be able to. You need someone to talk to. So the order of battle is completely customizable. You can also customize the historical patch or insignia of each division. It's very fun. So you can choose the icon that appears above each unit, kind of on their flag. You can customize that. You can customize your own like army groups insignia as well. And we let you choose from all the in-game insignias that are available, are present. We also let you name your officers. You can customize their names and also change their portraits. Yeah, we let you change what they look like. And we have hundreds of historical portraits there. And you can actually view the bio and information of each historical officer in their photo. These are real photos of real people who led these formations. You can choose from any of those portraits for yourself and for your officers. You can rename them. So you have to do a lot of, I guess, historical role playing. If there's like one specific division or army group you really like, you can make your entire army look like that. You can also upload your own, well, not upload. If you put the images in the right folder, you can use your own custom images as well for patches and historical photographs. I guess officers also, when they level up, they gain experience in battle and they earn skill points. There's a big skill tree, and you start at one point in the skill tree, and then you can branch out or to skills around them, and you can explore the different areas of the skill tree. Like one area is the infantry abilities, one area is like the armored abilities, one's like the support gun and artillery abilities. So you can level up and choose the way your officers do that. as well. So there's quite a bit of customization.
Yeah, and just hearing all of those details that players could customize, I'm really amazed. And something that came up into my mind as I was listening to, did anybody try to float the idea of having some AI, like the generative AI, do some of that customization for the player or help it in any way? And did somebody just shut that idea down?
Yeah, I guess our publisher, doesn't allow the use of AI in its games, so no, we didn't. We haven't explored that idea very much.
And that's why I like your publisher so much.
Oh, there we go.
Okay, so 2 more questions. What about modding, map editor, and player-created content?
Yeah, so as I just mentioned, you can already mod the game by putting in images in the right folders of just using custom division insignias or custom officer portraits. That's already in the game. As for map editor and more player-created content, again, unfortunately, those aren't available at launch. The actual process of creating a mission on our end is pretty lengthy. I guess our process goes like we download maps of an area on OpenStreetMap, and then we run it through a whole bunch of Python scripts and Blender scripts to create the 3D layers. Like, okay, here's the forest layer, here's the road layer, here's the town layer, here's the river layer. Those literally take like hours to run. So unfortunately, right now, unfortunately, players can't do it themselves. But it is something we would think about post-launch. If the community wants map editor, we'd certainly consider doing it.
I'm sure somebody is going to post a link to some mod they did to something of the game that you didn't expect.
I'm sure they will.
And the last question, what are your plans for post-launch content?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I can't talk about DLC or specific content. There will be a roadmap for that coming out pretty soon, and we'll have some announcements very, very soon about that sort of thing. But rest assured, there will be stuff added to the game. It's going to be good.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And if you want to add something for the audience or some advice about the game or a reason why they might like it, feel free to say it now.
I guess I just want to thank all the people who played in the beta and provided that thousands of pieces of feedback. Thanks you guys. We wouldn't be able to do it without you. And I hope that people try out Battleplan, because Battleplan is very unique. It's very different. There's nothing quite like it. So I hope people try it out and enjoy trying something new. I know that people generally prefer to stick in their comfort zones of like, oh, I just want a regular real-time strategy game. I just want a turn-based WeGo war game. I hope they're willing to try something new and innovative, because that's how we, I guess, like create new genres and move the industry forward, is trying new things. So I hope they're willing to give something new a try.
I completely agree with your call to action, and I hope you spark with your game new subgenre. Thank you very much for this interview, and I hope I get to interview you in Battleplan 2 in maybe future.
Thank you. It was good being here, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you once again. Goodbye.